reads, SPK Network is meant to be a complete solution for off-chain incentivization and dinfra, decentralized infrastructure. I like that. You can already store peer-to-peer, run a CDN node, encode. The plumbing is in place. The magic is when the incentive layer comes to life. The sharing economy is upon us. I don't know if you want to make any comments on that, Dan.
Yeah, it's very important to lay the plumbing first and be able to do these things. Yeah. Of course, they can be improved, and they're constantly being improved and looked on. But now, if someone wanted to, they could do these things and be outside the system and be self-sovereign, and that's great. And we understand the market we live in just proves our point even further. You can give people the plumbing. You can give people everything they need to survive. But they're not going to use it. Either they don't want to do the research, they don't have the means to, or it's just not convenient enough. The censorship hasn't grown so great that they feel the need to. When the incentive layer comes to life, that's when this thing really takes. It's sort of like putting the gas in the engine. It's like you build all these things, but you can't do anything with them without that fuel, without that incentive to move. And that's what being able to earn the great sharing economy. And this is really fun because I'm looking at ways to bridge the gap between the poorest and the richest and the right way, getting them close together, right? And all that's been happening is a fast track to the opposite way. It's been just more and more division. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and it's just getting to the point where something's got to give. And what's going to give, I believe, is the sharing economy. One thing that we all have is an abundance of awareness. We have an abundance of resources. Even your poorest families now have access to high-speed internet, have access to pretty big storage devices. Most people aren't, have at least 50% of their hard drive, right? People aren't running out of hard disk space anymore like they were 10 years ago. And you fast forward 5 years in the future, it's going to be even more so. So what happens when all of these people, when, a few bucks here and there makes a difference? And I'm not just talking about the United States. I'm talking about Venezuela. I'm talking about the entire planet. You can't just talk about countries. We're all on one big planet, and whatever helps Venezuela helps the United States and vice versa. And we're getting to a point where anybody can now contribute and earn. And that incentive makes it magical. It makes you want to keep track. You get your status, you get your NFTs, you build up your social capital. I heard something about that was actually really great. I think Brian of London sent it to me, but it was about, social capital is harder to earn than just capital, right? It's something that takes a long time to earn, and it's very easy to lose. People have never been able to earn that in these places, and now they can. They'll be in a community to say, hey, look at Eddie, or look at Enrique. Look at these people, how they've contributed, the marketing hours they put in. They're helping store the network. They're helping spread the word, and be able to see this in a tangible way, build your resume by just how you live. That's going to be very attractive, and that's when the sharing economy is going to become very big, and NFTs are going to take on lifetime value, where you're going to have a badge of honor that allows doors to open and unlock for you and opportunities to come to your way. So we're just so close, and it's exciting because the plumbing's the first part, and that's the hardest part, right? Once you get that, the token, the tokenomics, the incentive, all of that is fun. That's when the testing and people really start getting into it. But when you're putting in the plumbing behind the scenes, it just takes patience. So I'm just glad we're very, very close to something that we can put fuel in.
Yeah, we're not much plumbers, are we, Dan? We want to get past that phase.
Exactly.
But it's
countertops.
Yeah, exactly. Because we can play some poker on the countertops,
Yes.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I think the way this comes down to, going to your first point where you're talking about, the rich getting richer and everything like this, and that's partly, probably mostly in part due to cronyism and the way that, if you sit closest to the bank, the central bank, then it's very easy for you to line your pockets with fresh, new, high-valued money. This sharing economy is the other way around, bro. It's fucking upside down. It's like everyone's sitting next to the bank, and your social capital is what's going to earn you the initial emissions from that that central bank, as it were, the distributed central bank that nobody controls. So this is a flipping of the table, right? And if you can start off with what the SPK Network's doing, where you effectively make the running of the infrastructure for that bank, which is whichever ecosystem you're applying that to. In this case, it's going to be a content ecosystem, online content. If anyone's able to run a node from their own computer, and there's going to be different qualities of nodes. Some people are going to have really hardcore industrial level where they're going to employ large servers, but I'm still fairly confident in the way that this is being built. We're going to have people running small versions of nodes from their own computers, and there's so many people in the world that have got those now that you're really allowing the value creators of the network to be able to participate from anywhere, be anybody. Very little capital input required, maybe $20 a month to run a server. I imagine that's where it's going to get to. But even then, if you just run it from your local computer, it's just whatever your electricity costs were. And so you're going to be able to initially start out this ecosystem by distributing value to people all over the place with no barrier to entry. And after that, the platforms built on top of the ecosystem will be where people will manifest their social capital as they build it. And receive various different proof of brain tokens and platform tokens for getting involved in that side of things. And it really just turns the central bank model on its head. It literally turns it upside down and makes it a bottom up rather than a top down economy. So it's going to be super interesting to see how this goes. And yeah, we have the plumbing in place now. I mean, Dan, he says there you can already store peer-to-peer, correct, on the IPFS network that we have. You can already run a CDN. Vaultec launched that last week. You can already encode. We have an encoding system set up. They're all rudimentary level at the moment, but they're all operational, and we're improving. Vaultec's doing a great job of working on some of those at the moment. And then, the plumbing is in place. So the next thing to roll out is the validation system to help people prove what they say they're storing is what they're actually storing. And then after that, it's the token system, which we'll be working closely with Bobinson and Peerplays on to have that set up over the next few weeks and months. And boom, then it's like, it's not really like Frankenstein's monster, but it's like it comes to life then, and it starts to live a life of its own. And we'll see how the economy shapes around it, because we're building it in an open source free market economy, which we're fairly confident will balance itself. There's no set levels in there where it's a top-down economy. It's completely open source, free market, and so we're just looking forward to see how the whole thing balances itself out in the next few months.
Yeah, just quickly, it made me think of something. So when you look at sort of the Hive model versus other chains, most other chains are scaling inward in terms of build a layer 2 to scale to layer 1, build a layer 3 to scale to layer 2. Whereas Hive, it's pointing outward, right? You get the layer 2 to now scale the layer 1, but in the opposite effect, meaning we're storing off-chain because we have a fast base layer where we can actually send micropayments. That's reducing what goes on-chain to off-chain, making that even more scalable. So, right, you can't do this if you have $100 fees on the base layer. They could never have that off-chain solution model. They're focused on what goes on chain. We're focused on what goes off chain and how to incentivize it. It's apples and oranges. Their model is completely broken for how Web3 is going to work. Very little is actually going to go on chain. Smart contracts are all going to be layer 2s stored off chain, but incentivized by the chain, and making sure that base layer is never cluttered to the point where it costs a lot of money to send transactions. Once you do that, the entire model is broken if you want censorship resistant. Then you have to rely on centralized layer 2s, or maybe decentralized layer 3s, right? It's easier to have a decentralized layer 3 than it is a decentralized layer 2, because layer 2 has so much infrastructure required that without an incentive mechanism, no one's going to do that except people want your data. But yeah, just, this is what the SPK Network is, flipping that model on its head. Everyone's like, oh, how do we get as much data on chain and make that super small? And it's like, no, guys, get that stuff off chain and incentivize it. And the SPK Network is going to really show people what blockchains can do, in my opinion.
For sure, man. For sure. I mean, you just look at that. What I'm confident with the SPK Network is that it will help people redirect their attention to moving things off chain and make them realize that posting on chain is a valuable thing. And as time goes on, right now it's not, like it's really easy and it's not that, there's only, on Hive, in the Hive ecosystem, we've just got Splinterlands really that is smashing out the park in terms of transactions and things like that. But it's not putting any load on the chain. But of course, if we do want to scale, which we're fully capable of doing, and then over time more apps come on, more success happens, you're going to start filling the chain up. And anything that can be done to move things off chain into an incentivized layer off chain, it's just going to allow the chain to expand and grow and scale even more. And I like to think that the Speak Network will contribute significantly to the scaling of Hive over time. We'll see, see how it all goes, but it's definitely going to be a tool that people will be able to use to help them do that. And I'm just very excited that we're building this tech.
Yeah, if you look at the Hive as a mutable table of truth, in a funny little comparison, it would be like you had the 10 Commandments, but before the 10 Commandments, you had an LOL, not going to make it, all these little trash words, and then the 10 Commandments when it came important. That's what people are going to look at Hive, and I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe it was used in this way, what these people are saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
People were writing LOL in the comments and then putting that shit on the chain, like people are like, man, to do that these days, in 100 years from now, people are like, man, to do that today, it's like $100, man, and you guys were doing it for free, and what were you choosing to put on there? LOL.
Yeah.
Oh man, remember those days? Remember back in the days when we could write LOL on the chain, Dan? Remember those days? You kids don't know you're born.
Forever. Yeah, have some pride what you're writing right now, because the world's gonna see it 100 years from now. It's gonna be historic. Yeah. So
it's gonna be historic. Yes, some of the shit people are writing is gonna be historic. It's like this is what these primitive mammals were doing back in those days. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. Look at us finding out fire and fucking burning shit down, and it's like they didn't know what they were doing. They were just monkeys fucking a football. They had no idea what they had.
It's gonna be like, what the hell were Dan and Matt doing building a project to give these people the ability to vote? We got to do it because you know what the alternative is.
Yeah.
So there you go.